If someone's being mean to you or something's happening to you, you need to say, why are they doing that? What am I doing where I get that reaction? When you take that complete and total ownership in your life, it changes everything. Not just your investing, but it changes your whole outlook on life.
Welcome. This is the Hot Real Estate Investing Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping others through real estate investing. Our hosts interview guests from all aspects of real estate investing who generously share valuable experiences and advice. Whether you're starting out or an experienced investor, this is the show for you.
Hello and how's it going? Welcome to the Hot Real Estate Investing Podcast, where I interview guests who want to help others investing in real estate. My name is Travis Shelton, and I'm really looking forward to a discussion today about something we don't rarely talk about, and that's tenants and tenant screening and how the best way to identify and screen tenants, and also what successes and failures you may reap from real estate investing if you don't do a good job with some of your tenant screening. And so it's my pleasure to introduce an entrepreneur, business owner, the founder of Rent Perfect, and real estate investor, David Pickron. Thanks for joining us today.
Travis, thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this discussion. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I gave a little bit of your background, but can you give our audience your, 30-second elevator pitch, just a little bit more about yourself and your real estate focus?
Absolutely. So I have some mental problems. I like to create businesses and
you're an entrepreneur.
But the reality is I don't like to run businesses. I'm a creator. And so it's kind of like when I built my home, I put my own landscape in. I mean, I actually was out there planting the trees, but I don't think I've ever mowed my lawn. I just hire a service to go do it. And so there's something about me of this need to create. And I really create what I need in my life. And I know if I create what I need in my life, other people will also need that. So I have anywhere from an employment screening company that does big cable companies across the U.S., Cox Cable, Charter Spectrum, Comcast. You might have heard of some of those. I started Rent Perfect that helps landlords find the right tenant the first time. Because I do own 16 properties that I manage myself, I need something to help me do that. I mean, it's hard enough if it's paper and folders. I need something to help me stay organized and do things quickly and efficiently. But if I can just add it, I love your opening where we say we don't talk about tenants enough. We are in the people business, right?
For sure.
We think we're property managers. We are people managers. The reality is if you have an empty unit, it's not paying you anything, right?
Correct.
I guess if you're a flipper and you buy it, it's empty and you flip it, that's great. But if you're long-term holding a property to get that appreciation over the years, you were in the people business.
I've never heard it talked about like that, but you're dead on. I mean, Nell hit on the head.
Your success and failure is through the people that you rent to. So it's time to say, hey, great brick and mortar. Fantastic. I got a good deal. But if I'm really going to make this work, I have to be an expert at finding the right person. We call them the right business partner, because if you look at them as just a tenant, they're just a tenant. Yeah, there's someone lives there. But if you realize you need them to have success, they're your business partner. So you're going to treat them like a business partner. If they're successful, you're successful. If they fail, you fail. So
what a great mindset. I love that. I love that. And like I said, I really haven't heard of it like that, but I think more investors need to think about tenants and, as business partners. I really do. I love that. We always start these shows and podcasts off with some motivation. And so what is the motivational quote you'd like to share with our audience today?
Don't ever complain about the road you're on. It's your own asphalt. Okay.
So why'd you pick that
My
one?
kids hear this all the time because we're in a society of complainers, right?
Of course.
I think of real estate investments that I didn't do that I should have done. Like, I could have. I should have bought more. I should have done this. Listen, don't complain about the road you're on. It's probably a pretty good road if you're an investor right now, right? But if it's a terrible road, you need to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm in charge of the road I'm on. And you're going to later ask me about a book, and it's going to be the exact same thing of personal responsibility. You are where you are supposed to be, right? You get back from the world what you expect of it. You know, if someone's being mean to you or something's happening to you, you need to say, why are they doing that? What am I doing where I get that reaction? When you take that complete and total ownership in your life, it changes everything, not just your investing, but it changes your whole outlook on life.
I love that. Control what you can control, and enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot. I think when you're the crux of a flip or a rental property or a problem, right? It's like, well, I do have this asset. I do have this is going to make me money, maybe not as much as I want. It's always kind of how you look at it. And I think of like The Gap and the Gain, a good book that I'd always think that all the bad things that would happen in a situation instead of all the positives. So I love that you brought that focus to today's
Absolutely. And
podcast.
I will tell you, as the serial entrepreneur that I am, I do enjoy the journey, because when I actually get to the end of the success, I ended up turning it over to somebody to run and manage for me. So I really enjoy the journey. And so I love that quote. That's number 2 for me. You gave me number 2, quote number 2. Thank you.
Love it. So maybe transitioning into our main topic, how can you help our audience of real estate investors? Like, as you mentioned, you have 16 rental properties, you manage 5 businesses. Like what success principles can you impart on our audience today?
Okay. So the only way I do that is two ways. One is I use technology to help me. Okay. So we've got to use technology. Now, when I say technology at Rent Perfect, there's no more finding a paper application, going and meeting with a person, giving them the application, scanning them the application. There's no more keeping a manila folder. There's no more getting on my computer, going to Word and overlapping the last lease I did and putting my name and dates, and then I forget it. I give them a lease with the wrong information. That all takes time. I don't have time, and you don't have time. We don't have time. So we now created Rent Perfect, where if I show the property, someone says, I'll take it, I simply say, give me your phone number, which I usually already have because I've already talked to them to meet them there. Give me your email address. I put it in the Rent Perfect system. I send it away. I go about my business. They're filling out an online application. They're uploading their driver's license. They're uploading their paycheck stubs, everything that I'm going to need. While I'm having lunch, dinner, on vacation, whatever I'm doing, they're working. I'm not working, right? And so we need to make sure that we have technology in our lives, no matter what we do, that can work for us. But let me be cautious here. There are certain things that technology can't do for us. And one is, it can't take our human instincts of being a landlord, right? Of vetting someone, of having a conversation with somebody, of meeting them at the property, going through, asking them a few questions and listening and getting a feel, is this going to be a good business partner for me or not? Now, we need to be careful because fair housing says we have to stick to our criteria. We have to treat everybody the same. So I'm not talking about sizing people up and making the decision in your brain. They're going to be on your criteria, right? They're going to pass your criteria. But our background checks at Rent Perfect, the ones that we do, are investigational background checks. We have private investigators here that are looking at your file. They're going to courts. They're pulling up records. They're not a computer that's just spitting information out and saying yes or no. My investigators have that instinct. They know, hey, something's not right here. He's got a probationary state. He's on probation from another state. He's got a compact to be in this state. What did he do in another state? We're searching nationwide. So you're getting this investigative screening, which falls into number 2. So number 1 is technology. Number 2 is the right people. Yeah. You got to have the right people, because who's going to take up a lot of your time is a renter who's constantly calling you, who's a pain, who can't pay rent. That's all the heartaches of being a landlord. So if you can get the right people and have the right technology, you can go run 5 businesses and 16 properties and not have a property manager.
It makes it so much easier, right? Leveraging the technology.
And our success is the business partners we just talked about. And so we really need to focus on that if we're going to find success in the long-term rental game.
Yeah, and I always find people want to just place a tenant, right? It's not place the right tenant, or like you said,
Right.
place your business partner there. It's like, how soon can we fill that void?
Right.
But it's just like a bad employee, right? If you just go see if they can, if they have a pulse and you're going to hire them, you're going to deal with so many more repercussions and issues on the back end versus taking a little bit more time to screen and do your due diligence to ensure that you have the right tenant. So, like, what's different or proprietary about Rent Perfect, perhaps, or like you said, that investigative tool, as opposed to maybe some other things out there, other tenant screening tools out there? How do you kind of match up, or Rent Perfect match up?
Okay. First of all, Rent Perfect, like I said, has private investigators in the background, right? So the first thing we're doing that your instant database company do not do. Now, if you're using an instant database company because you get your results right away. Like you push a button, comes back right away. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all database driven. Do we have data on this person? Okay. So number one, if databases have someone's name in it where a constant criminal history is denying them, they're going to change their name, their spelling of their name, their date of birth, their social security number. So the first thing we do as PIs is we make sure the person who's applying with you is really who they say they are. Okay. Yeah. We're comparing IDs, we're comparing socials, we're comparing, their date of birth, their spelling of their names. Are they William? Are they Bill? Did they switch their first name and last name? Are they their brother? I mean, there's all kinds of things that we do to make sure, because we deny as many people with criminal history as we do. We just can't really tell who they are because they're lying to us. They're trying to sneak and get through our system. There are a lot of people out there right now. There's a lot of bad apples out there right now. Yeah. A lot of them have gotten evicted from COVID. They finally quit paying their free rent. They're evicted. There's a lot of trouble out there right now, and they're doing everything they can to put a roof over their head. And I get it. I would too. You need a place to live, right? Yeah. But I want to push those people off to the mom and pops who don't know what they're doing, but people who are listening to you or part of a RIA. I want to educate to say, hey, here's the secret to getting the good guys in our place and pushing everybody else out to deal with those guys. Right.
Who is like your avatar, your primary customer? Is it primarily newer investors or people kind of starting out in the game, or do you have?
So our average client's 1 to 10 units. Now we have management companies that have 2,500 units, but really what we cater to and what we do, a lot of our training and our videos is to the brand new investor who you don't have time to make a mistake when you bought your first property. When you buy your first property, it's not empty. You're 100% not getting paid and that mortgage is due. And if you're a new investor, I can't imagine you have $1 gazillion in the bank. You're kind of running pretty thin. So we kind of teach new investors how to make sure and protect themselves and do it the right way, because they haven't had the years of mistakes that a lot of us seasoned investors have had. They haven't had those years of learning. So we're trying to say, hey, let's fast track you. Let's save you some of the mistakes that we made. And so we do all kinds of videos, series of videos. We have one called the Lazy Landlord series. That's just like 2 or 3 minute, just quick, boom, boom. This is what you do. This is what you look for. This is what you ask, stuff like that. So it gives you an example of 2 questions to ask at the, showing, just ask them like, what are you going to miss about your old place? And then just be quiet and listen to everything they didn't like, they did like. Was the landlord awful? If they're gunning their landlord, you're the next landlord.
You're the next one.
Right? Yeah. If they're like, actually, we loved it. They sold a home. We had a park across the street. We loved everything about it. We loved our neighbors. Then oh man, if I live, these guys move in here, they're going to love the neighbors. The neighbors aren't going to be calling me. Right? Yeah. If they're like, oh, everything's terrible. You have a victim and you know that what you can expect. So we just train little tidbits like that for people to really find that right tenant the first time.
What is like maybe one of the biggest or most common reasons you hear people kind of switching to your company, Rent Perfect? Like what are some of those horror stories? And there's tons I know with tenant screening, but maybe some of the most common of why they said, I was dealing with this situation. I just don't want to deal with it anymore. And your company, solved this solution or, provided the solution for this.
First and foremost, it was the amount of time it took them to onboarding. We now at Rent Perfect call it one-boarding. It takes less than 1 minute every time you get on our app to have someone apply, to look at their reports, to prepare their lease, to set up their rent pay schedule. It takes less than 1 minute. So time was, when you don't like to do something, you don't do it right. You rush through it. Your brain says, hey, this is painful. How do we just get through this? And so when you're taking a lot of time doing something, we find that you cut corners. With our system, it's so easy, so intuitive that it is simply takes less than a minute to take you through the process. So time number 2 is an eviction record out there, which is really important in our world. We want to know, how has someone paid their rent, right? And if they were evicted, we know they didn't pay their rent and they went through the courts. Most screening companies do not find evictions. Evictions are the hardest record to find, and this is why. When we look at a criminal history, we look at your first, middle, last name, and your date of birth. That information lets us know most likely it's you. But when landlords file evictions, they don't put a social security number, a date of birth. Courts are hiding the addresses, the personal information, and it's like a name-only search. So if you have a John Smith applying with you, and I go to the courts where they've lived and look for eviction records, I have 75, 100 John Smiths to look through to see if that, is possibly the John Smith that's going to be applying with you. Because if I say it is the John Smith and it's not the right John Smith, you're going to hear about it. I'm going to hear about it, right? So people are sick of missing eviction records, and a lot of them come to us knowing that we are very, very diligent about those eviction records, because they are just, that's something that a computer, if it can't match up the name, a date of birth, a social, it can't spit back the results. It gives you a name only and leaves you exposed. If you use that against the person, it's not them, it puts you in a lot of legal problems. So
you shoot yourself in the foot because you didn't do a good job. The worst thing you could potentially do.
Right.
Other than maybe the tenant screening, does Rent Perfect or any of your other companies provide additional value to real estate investors?
No, the most of it is for employment screening and then rental screening. Here in Arizona, and it's an Arizona-only company, we have an eviction company that will help you take those people out, called AAA Landlord Services. But I don't like talking about the eviction side of it. I would rather convince you to go to the Rent Perfect side and don't have those eviction problems, right? So that's really what I want to really focus on.
Do it right up front, and don't worry about the negative stuff.
And here's what's great about Rent Perfect is it's free. I mean, it's free. The tenant pays the application fee directly to us. That takes that means they're calling us a lot. Like, hey, the system, you're not paying tech support over there as a landlord. They're actually doing their own background check on themselves. They're paying for it. We're helping them through it, and then they're sharing the results from you. That takes away a ton of liability for a landlord, because instead of them saying, well, you did a background check on me. No, I did it. You did the background check on yourself. And then you shared it through an authentic platform like mine to make sure everything's correct. And then I gave it to the landlord in its correct form. That takes away all kinds of regulations for you.
I love it too, because then you're giving that tenant, a service. Like, they have their own criminal background check that they can share, if it's not that property, potentially another property, 100%. And just give,
100%.
No, I like that service. Yeah. What advice maybe would you give to a listener who hasn't started investing in real estate? Is it worthwhile? Do you like it yourself? You have properties. Is this a good time to invest in real estate? I mean, what kind of knowledge would you like to?
So I just bought a property about 3 weeks ago, $335,000. It's I use it more of a midterm rental, more of a short-term furnished. I can make a little bit more money off of that. And so it pencils. It's not giving me a huge profit because of interest rates and stuff, but we'll refinance it in the future and we'll make it work, in the future. But it just depends on the deal. I mean, I know that there's not a lot of deals out there right now, but if you find the right deal, it's always the right time. And I personally think this is the best business in the world, right?
Yeah.
And, if you're from Illinois, in the Chicago area where there's so much restrictions, that might not be the place to buy a rental property. But I'm in Arizona, and Arizona is still really a great place. People are still moving here. There's a lot of sun, a lot of things to do. So it depends where you're at and where you're going to invest. I'm still investing here in Arizona. I'm buying some stuff up about 2 hours north of the Phoenix area in kind of more cool country where people are escaping to and doing more short-term, midterm rentals. But yeah, it just depends on where you're at. But I will tell you, this is the best business in the world. It absolutely 100% is the best business in the world. I don't have to even tell everybody that's listening to this this
No,
podcast
yeah.
that you buy an asset, someone else pays for it, and you still own it. Like,
Yeah.
how could that not be the best business in the world?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just rinse. You know what? It's not as sexy as some other Bitcoin and just getting rich overnight or some other things. It's like, I always tell people real estate's a get rich slowly, and it's
Right.
not as attractive to someone that wants to get rich
Yeah.
quickly, but it's the easiest tried and true way to build wealth and generational
But
wealth
you get
over
rich
time.
quickly and you can get poor quickly too.
Yeah.
Based on the risk of crypto or of the stock market.
Absolutely.
When I did the stock market back in the 2000s, I was in a good time. And when I was buying stuff, I was like, man, I'm the best trader there is. I'm picking all the winners. But everybody was picking the winners because everything was heading up, But what I found in my life was I was checking stock prices every 10 minutes, every 15. It like owned me. It owned me. My rental portfolio doesn't own me. I'm not checking on Zillow what my house are,
Exactly.
the values are today. I set it, I forget it. I put them on perfect rent pay. The pay automatically comes into my bank account from theirs.
Yeah.
It alerts me if they don't pay. So I almost don't even pay attention to my real estate in a way. I go by and see and make sure that places are okay, but it doesn't own me. And I don't want to
when people said, "Oh, the market's crashing," I'm like, "Well, I got fixed rates. I'm cash flowing. My rent didn't change. My mortgage didn't change. Nothing changed. And I don't have to sell.
Right.
So people are like, "Oh, well, it doesn't affect you." I'm like, "Well, maybe my personal financial statement went down a little bit with all my assets, but like at the end of the day, I can qualify for anything I want. So it doesn't affect me." It just gives me more buying power now that prices are going down a little bit.
It's time to buy, right?
Yep.
Are you upset?
Exactly.
No, because I'm
No.
ready. It's time to buy. And
every investor out there is like they've been waiting for this opportunity. They've been waiting for a little bit of a dip or an opportunity to not have to pay primo
everything
prices.
I can do right now. I'm getting ready for this next wave. I think you have 3 or 4 waves in your lifetime. I'm getting ready for probably my last wave. I'm in my 50s now, and I'm getting ready to do one more big wave. And then at the end of that wave, I'll probably cash out, sell. I don't know, give my kids some homes. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll be in a great position. So, if you look at life as these investment waves come and go, you know how to get ready for them. You know how they work. So
I like that philosophy and mindset for sure. And that's what they say. You only get a few of these opportunities in your life, a down market or whatnot. And as you mentioned before, anyone could have done well in the last 4 or 5 years, right? It's like now you're really starting to see who were the bad flippers, who were the bad investors or more risk takers.
Who got a little too cocky. Absolutely.
And then who's still in the market?
Yeah.
Well, really great.
I thought I was the best, trader. And I won't even touch the market now. Now, everything I try to do it goes south. So I just like, you know what? That's not my thing. So.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Great conversation. David, are you ready for the hot seat?
Sure.
All right. We ask all our guests the same final 4 hot questions. Number 1, what is one book you'd recommend to someone wanting to know more about real estate investing?
Okay. I think it's more than real estate investing, but I like extreme ownership. It's not about real estate, but it's about getting your mind ready to rock, like ready to get into the real estate world. So it's not going to talk about buying houses and flipping houses. It's going to get you ready for, you can do this, take total responsibility, and go get it done. So I anytime someone wants to meet with me at first, whether it's a younger kid who wants to be me to be their mentor or whatever, I say, you need to read this book before we talk. I think it sets the ground principles that every investor needs, even before you start talking about what kind of investments you're going to do.
Love that. There's so many good entrepreneur, just like mindset books that I think are must within this real estate investing world.
This
so
is
thanks
just
for
a
sharing
business. I mean, this is real estate, but it is a business. So why not just, learn about good general business and how not to fail? The book is about, Navy SEALs and how they go out and plan and organize, and then they come back and assess, what did we do wrong and how can we fix that next time? And what happened was supposed to happen because of the way we approached it. And so it just really sets the brain up really well for investing, in my opinion.
Love it. I'm really interested in your answer to this one. What is your favorite productivity tip or trick? Maybe some sort of tool or time saver, maybe an app that helps you get more done.
It's my app by far. It's Rent Perfect by far.
Okay.
by far, I don't mean to promote it even more,
Sure.
but
You're
when I
allowed
do
to.
this one boarding and I touch things, 1 minute out of the day, whether I want to, have someone apply to my property or create the lease or set them up for the rent pay, send them off to do a move-in inspection, everything saves me so much time. And I will tell you, I'm not super good about having a calendar and being organized. I'm not. I'm kind of the guy who creates the mess, and I have everybody around me clean it up. But this is one thing that I tell you what, I'm so glad I built. And I always tell everybody, if no one else signed up for Rent Perfect ever, and I was the only one who uses it, I would still have built it.
I love it. I mean, it's, that's the number one thing I find for real estate investors is they don't have the time, and they just need to find better ways of doing things. And so I think your product definitely provides that streamlined approach.
One more
to being
point
able
is
to assist.
I collect $32,000 around in rent a month. Okay. If I were to pay a property manager 10%, I'd pay him $3,200 a month to manage my properties for me. Yet my app does that for me. So my app is saving me time, which I love, but it's making me $3,200 a month in a roundabout way. So
It absolutely is, because
that's
the going rate,
right?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's paying for itself. What's your biggest real estate mistake or failure, and what did you learn from it?
A couple things. Number one is, when I was younger, I thought I had all the answers. That I was the one.
We all do.
Yeah, I was the one who was the genius. And the mere fact that a lot of times I didn't listen to my wife and what she had to say. And she's actually ended up becoming this phenomenal real estate partner of mine, who instincts are amazing, that I overlooked when we were younger. We went and bought some land, and I had some actually family members developing some land. You need to buy this land. It's going to be worth. It was in 2006, 2007. I went pretty heavy into land. My wife the whole time was saying, land's not making us money. No one pays rent on land. Land is going to tie us up. Land's going to lock us up. Oh, honey, we're going to flip this thing. And I was looking at all the roses and great.
Sure.
And lo and behold, then here comes, 2008, and we locked up a lot of capital into land. I learned two things. And one is that you don't know everything. Right? You need to listen to some people around you, listen to some instincts, and realize that some people around you actually know as much as you do, if not more. Yep. And number two, I just stay away from land. I just don't see it. It's a long-term play. I think it's that land I still have. My kids will end up probably benefiting from it in their next lifetime with the way the market's going. And so I just stay away from land. So
really valuable tips and tricks, and always think for my wife, happy wife, happy life. And I think one of her real estate investment properties is our best asset to date. So it's one of those. Yeah, it's like I do all the work. She picks better properties than me.
We were out at National RIA this last month when this home came available that we bought, and she's like, "We need this. We need this in our portfolio. We need this. I like it." And I was like, it's pretty pricey. I'd bought one in that neighborhood for half of what they were asking this just years ago, and I was letting that. Yeah. She's like, I want this, and I finally had to sit back and listen to myself when I'm talking today and saying, you know what, she knows what she's talking about. So we went ahead and we did it, and I'm so glad we did. So
yeah, it's amazing, and no one of us is as smart as all of us, is what I always think, and you got to have those people that you're willing to listen to. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
A good dad and a good husband.
Yeah.
Good. And then
I can tell that from you. Yeah.
Maybe that's an answer that everybody gives on your podcast. But, when it comes at the end of the day, none of these properties are going with me. I'm going to leave all this money to my kids anyways. I don't know. Maybe I'll go spend it myself. I don't know if I could.
No, it's funny. Not enough people probably do answer that simply, right? It should be that simple. But I think for a lot of people, it's more complex, but it should be that simple. I want to be a good person. I want to be a great dad.
I feel like I grew up in the best time that this country had to offer. Like this country, when I was placed on this earth, and the generation that I saw was maybe the pinnacle of the United States. Now, I don't mean to be down about our future. I don't mean to be negative, but I'm just being actually positive about my lifetime. Mm-hmm. My kids who grew up in a decent neighborhood, decent schools, decent friends, they're struggling. And anxiety and emotion. They don't know how they're going to live up to what their dad has done. They don't see their future. They don't see their success. And I spend a lot of my time just trying to teach my kids, listen, you can do this. I was of the mindset, and I'm a little older than you are, that when you're 18, you couldn't wait to get out of the house. Like the clock was counting down. I'm out of here. I've got a 24-year-old that says, I don't know when I'm leaving. That's a little bit scary.
It's a different world.
Luckily, we're sending him off to law school here in August. And so hopefully after law school, he stays out and he finds his bearing. But, I just want to be a good dad and a good husband, because this next generation needs good dads, good husbands.
100%. Yeah. And as a father of 3, that's my number one thing is just have them better than I am, and set them on the right road to success. And appreciate that answer and you being so transparent about those things.
I have 3 myself, so we have something in common. 3's a good number.
Very nice. Yeah, for sure. The best place for the Hot REI community to connect with David is at rentperfect.com, or David at rentperfect.com. He also has a podcast, the Rent Perfect Podcast. You can stream on YouTube, Apple, or Google Podcasts. David, dude, thank you so much for this conversation today. Really enjoyed getting to know you better and learning a little bit more about Rent Perfect and all the different things that you got going on in your world.
Awesome. And I'm reachable too. I don't hide behind a lot of things. I'm reachable if someone really needs some mentoring or some questions. Most of the people that work here are landlords. So we're talking to you as you, not as, a computer tech company, or we don't have a 1-800 number where you call the Philippines. You call here, you're a couple people away from getting to me. So I'd be more than happy to help anybody.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And we'll include all your contact information in our show notes. Thank you for tuning in today, and commit to taking action this week to move your investing forward. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Hot Real Estate Investing Podcast. Check out our website, hotrei.com, for additional content and resources. And please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review so we can continue to bring even more value to others through real estate investing.